Today, we want to talk about data processing. Data processing. I spend most of my time as an instructor doing data processing. You wouldn't believe how much data processing I have to do. In fact, it reminds me of something. I had a student come to office hours this morning. I was going to mention this in announcements, and I totally forgot. But this is a perfect time to remember it. You should always check your grades. And I don't mean like whether or not like in grade scope, like whether you have a regrade or not, but make sure everything gets moved over to Canvas correctly. Because one student noticed his step-it grades for the last four reading quizzes were wrong. He did them, but he got zeros. And while I was talking to him this morning in office hours, I realized I had a data error in my data processing. I had a sorting problem that screwed up his username. And so when I imported his data into Canvas for the last, in fact, by the way, I was importing all of your data incorrectly. It just so happened it didn't affect any of you. But he was getting the grades of a student who's no longer in the class. So he was getting zeros, despite the fact that he did everything. So data processing is something that we still do a lot of. And I actually had a problem with Excel, and I had to fix everything. So make sure you review your grade just to make sure everything's correct. But I went and fixed that, and so his grades are fine now. And it didn't drop anybody else's grades. It might have helped others, but it probably didn't hurt anybody. But it was just a weird little data processing error. Okay, so data processing, we're going to look at 2D data as comma separated values, whatever the CSV thing is. We're going to learn how to access data in a CSV file as a list of dictionaries. We're going to access data in a CSV file as a dictionary of dictionaries. We're going to look at this whole thing of CSVs and dictionaries and lists of dictionaries, and we're going to work with some real world data. And to start this discussion, I have this table. And this table looks very similar to what we did when we did two-dimensional lists earlier, right? We did two dimensionals. And so we're just storing other ways of storing two-dimensional data structures. Like I have this table, cities, days, and temperatures. And remember, we did this already as a 2D list. We did it as a 2D list. And if it was a 2D list and I wanted to get, say, the temperature for Anaheim, and let's just draw some indices here. Let's see, what color have I not used? Let's grab purple. Let's see, that's going to be index 0. In a 2D list, remember we have indices. Actually, in a 2D list, did we put the city name in there? We didn't put the city name in there. We did this. That's how we did it in the 2D list. And when we did the 2D list, we did, let's say we had W, which is our 2D list, and we wanted the temperature for Anaheim. So on Wednesday, what's the temperature for Anaheim? Maybe I'm going to skip class and just go up to Disneyland for the day. Not going to happen, unfortunately, but let's say I was and I want to know the temperature. So remember, I look up the row, and it's row 1, and then I look up the column, which is column 2, and that would give me the value of 80 degrees, which is the answer I was looking for. So that's how I do it with a 2D list. We've already covered that, and we know that that data can be useful. But let's look at other ways we can use this data that could be useful and maybe a little more informative. And the first way I want to look at this is as a list of dictionaries. Now, before I look at this data in Python, I want to look at, actually, I have a file. Let me open my file. I want to look at it in a spreadsheet. Let's see, where's my data? Weather data. There we go, weather data. Because I don't know about you, but I like using spreadsheets to manage 2D kind of tabular data. So I'm trying to figure out how to zoom in. Okay, so here we have a spreadsheet with all the weather data, exact same stuff that's written here. And we have columns, A through F, and then in the first column, we have the cities, and then these other columns, we have the weather data. And spreadsheets are really nice. Well formatted, All our data is located in cells. We can do highlighting. So here's some highlights of our data. I can do, I didn't work well for that cell, but the other cells can be centered. Looks pretty nice. I can do calculations, but you know, I'm a programmer. I can do all those calculations in programs too. But it's really nice to be able to work with spreadsheets. We have all these columns and rows, and we can do really large. In fact, your grade scope data, your Canvas data, and your STEPIC data all comes to me as spreadsheets, and then I convert them all in and push them all into Canvas. Spreadsheets, lots and lots of spreadsheets, and we can use stuff with programming, and I actually occasionally do use a lot of programming on spreadsheets. And if I want to be able to program using the spreadsheet, and by the way, despite the fact I'm using Excel, all of this holds true for Google Sheets. What I'm about to show you also works for Google Sheets, just in a slightly different way. I want to be able to load this data in Python. And so to do that, I'm going to use a format called CSV. So file, save as, and then there's my file name as an Excel SX file, which is an Excel workbook. If I click the drop down, ignore the UTF-8 one and go down to where'd it go? Although I typically use UTF-8, it's not a big deal. But there's another one here called CSV, comma delimited star.csv. And now I have a new extension. It's going to save this file. It's going to save it in the same folder, which is our lecture folder. And now I have a CSV file. And as soon as that little thing turns off the blue, it'll actually be uploaded and you'll be able to download it directly from our website. In fact, there it is. It's now ready for you to download if you want to go look at it. Point is, it's a CSV file. And we can open them and save them in Excel. We can save them in Google Sheets. We can do a lot of stuff in it. But at the end of the day, a CSV file, and I'm going to open it in Notepad. Actually, let's open it in Notepad++. You can open it in standard Notepad as well. Unfortunately for me, Notepad+ is my default, so I can't open it in standard Notepad. But it's just text, right? It's a text file, and the CSV stands for comma separated values. And so you can see all the commas that are in here. And if I compare this back to the original spreadsheet, you can see that all the data is there. City, comma, Monday, comma, 2, comma, Wednesday, comma, Thursday, comma, Friday. San Diego on the second row, comma, 78, comma, 75, comma, 75, comma, 75, comma, 77. Boy, San Diego's consistent, isn't it? Anaheim, comma, 81. You notice all the commas. So we can take a spreadsheet file and save it as a text file with CSV format. And again, just to really quickly show you what that looks like, this is our schedule. I don't really want this in CSV format, but if you do File, Download, you can download as Excel file and then convert it to CSV, or you can download the current sheet as a comma separated value. So all of your data can be converted to CSV values, which makes it very easy for us to load them into programs using, well, we're going to use a library for it. So we take the spreadsheet files and we convert them into text files that are comma separated values. Unfortunately, we can't just use an Excel file directly in our programs. Let me open up an Excel spreadsheet in Notepad++. That is a binary file, proprietary to Microsoft. And while there are converters out there, this is not something that I want to read in the program, because that's going to be hard to interpret. So CSV file, straight text, we can use it. And this is a kind of data that we can actually load and use. And we will. And so we can use, we can use spreadsheets, right? And spreadsheets are good because, one, a lot of websites and such, like I said, Canvas and STEPIC all give me spreadsheets. That's the one kind of data they give me. But if I put them in a CSV file, I get a comma separated file. And you'll notice that there's this thing called a delimiter. There was a delimiter on there. And a delimiter is the separator. And in a CSV file, the separator is the comma. It's the separator between the different columns. That's what a delimiter is. In a CSV file, it's a comma, it's our separator. And in a few minutes, we're going to take a look and see why that's important to us. And we're going to open up some real world spreadsheet data and do some programming with it. But in general, when programming, when we want to access spreadsheet data, we save it as a comma separated value format. And then it's easy to write a program that can access and read that data.